Okay,
Dan, if I-
guys, give me about 20 seconds of quiet. We'll
All
get
right.
ready to go.
And Doug, you're good 25, 30 minutes?
Dan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry, John. And welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com, despite the fact that I forgot to change my name on the Zoom. With me tonight is not Ross Grimsley, but he's an ex-Oriole of a little bit more renown, and that is Doug DeCinces. Doug, thank you for joining us again. Ross is under the weather. Do you have any message you'd like to send to him?
Not that I can put on the air.
We appreciate, both of us appreciate, even though I'm the only one here, but I appreciate you doing this. Hey, we had you on about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and I got the same thing wrong that we were just talking about. You were the equivalent back in 1981, I believe it was, of what the positions like that Max Scherzer and Andrew Miller were. It's a different setup now, but you were the American League rep, not a team representative back then, correct, in the negotiations?
Yes.
Okay.
Each team had a rep, and then the American League had to have their rep, and the National League. All the individual team guys voted on who that person was going to be to represent the league.
As an aside, I'm just curious, at the time you were probably about a 27, 28-year-old player, 29. Why did they choose Doug DeCinces? Do you have any recollection?
Well, I really don't know, but you know, they approached me and asked me to be the alternate American League rep.
Okay.
Kind of said, I looked at him kind of funny, and I kind of said, you know, what does that entail? Because if I'm an alternate, do I have to go or whatever? And they said yes. And Mike Marshall was the head at the time, and then
Okay.
Mike Marshall got traded to the Dodgers, or I think he signed with the Dodgers and left, and that put me in that position. And in 1980, I was like, I think I was about 1 month as the alternate rep, and
Then you were the league rep. Wow. Now you told me just before we went on the air that your counterpart in the National League was Bob Boone, who at that time was with the Phillies. You were with the Orioles when the settlement came. By the next season, the 82 season, neither one of you were with the teams you had been with.
Yeah, that's kind of that's kind of what happened, and
Right.
And I don't think Andrew Miller or Scherzer are going to get traded over this.
Right. Right. A question. Max Scherzer and Andrew Miller have made a good chunk of money. Max Scherzer a lot more money than Andrew, but the fact that the wealthier players really stood tall in trying to help the younger players, and maybe not as much help got to the intermediate players. But does that say something about the strength of the union today?
It definitely does. When back in 1980, 81, I mean, Reggie Jackson stepped up big time, and he was obviously the big wheel. And a lot of guys were, that were successful, high money makers with the most to lose were the ones standing there saying, we got to do this. And when you have that, like what happened this time, it shows that these players understand how they got that money.
Yep.
And in order to continue that path for the future players, like what we did for the next generation, and what the next generation then did and continues. That's what it's all about. It's, I mean, these guys have the most to learn, but to lose and have experience going through all the different negotiations and everything and understand. So when you have a younger player seeing Matt Scherzer standing up going, this isn't right, we're standing up. And, and I also, who else did I see?
When that committee, there was,
Chicago's first baseman that went to the Yankees, why am I drawing like, my gosh, left-handed.
Rizzo.
Yeah, he stood up and he said, look, this isn't as much for us as it is for the future players of the game. And I think everybody understands that. When you get to the big leagues, it's like set up, and you have to understand, how did it get set up? And they protect it.
Yeah, just like you had to stand on the shoulders of Robin Roberts and Jim Bunning and those people that helped start the union, and Brooks.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm wondering if you.
And by the way, I think Brooks and Belanger were the ones that nominated me for this.
Yeah, probably. I'm wondering if you see it the same way I do, because it was interesting when the settlement came about. Buster Olney of the New York Times was quoted as saying something to the effect that this deal does nothing for the middle class. It keeps the wealthier players where they are. It helps younger players who are just starting to make money, but it doesn't address the middle class. And my reason for asking this question is the way I see it. I just read this about a month ago. Travis Sawchik wrote this, and he said that he'd done a deep dive into it, and that players had lost in the last 10 or 12 years, the average playing career. I guess it took into account cups of coffee and moved them aside, but the average playing career had gone from 4.6 years to about 3.6 years in a 10 or 12 year stretch. And it seems to me that the owners, from an economic standpoint, and they use the analytics, Doug, that they've sort of created this world in which so many players are interchangeable that they sort of create a class of players where they go, you know what, we can keep this guy for $1.8 million, but we got a guy coming up that makes $550,000. Let's do that. And they're constantly throwing people to the side. Do you see it that way? I know that was a long-winded question, but do you see that as what they've systematically shortened players' careers?
Well, that is the result of their overall structure that they decided to go. Look, they know the Scherzers and the Trouts and and all the MVP upper echelon players are going to get what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Okay. Free agency's never going to change that. So the middle player was getting squeezed, because now you see all these owners are throwing money at guys like the Tampa Bay shortstop, the rookie guy. All of a sudden, you give a big contract. You're going, why would you do that? But they're trying to tie guys up. And when they tie guys up to a certain age point, then they know they're going to have free agency, or they try to tie them up young to go past the free agency, because those are the elite players that they see. Yeah. Now, I mean, always that's a gamble when that happens, but in the same token, they're lowering the salary of the future players. Now, I hope you understand that, because that good player is signed and committed to that number, and he might be the MVP of baseball.
Right.
But he's out of contract, and he can't go to arbitration. He can't increase. So the stars are the ones that have increased the height of what the salaries are. And then that's the trickle down theory. So when the trickle down theory, to go to your original question, those middle players can get pushed out, because the guy sitting on the bench who isn't an everyday player and he's making $2.5 million, that's the guy that's, it's hard, because that's where youth comes back in to see whether they can play.
youth and cheaper economics.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But, you know, I don't think they're going to be able to degrade the game of baseball to the quality by doing that on a mass production, but on smaller production things, guys that were borderline that not really playing, let's say they only play in 50 games a year, but they're sitting on the bench the whole time being a utility player, they can move those guys out. And
Yeah.
we're doing things. That's why their whole structure changed. I mean, weren't you shocked when they signed that shortstop that doesn't even have a year in the big leagues to that
Tampa Bay,
Yeah.
Wander Franco. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was like, what? Okay. They started to do that, believe it or not, with Cal Ripken when he got into the arbitration stage of his negotiations.
Right.
And so they signed him to an extended contract to avoid having to go to arbitration with Cal every year.
And the argument they used then is that, hey, you're getting guaranteed money. You know, yeah, we may get you for a couple of years cheaper, but you've got the guaranteed money if you blow out a gasket.
That's good business.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
They're saying, and especially with a guy like Cal Ripken who didn't miss many games during that time. But there, you know, the average, I thought the biggest eye opener for me was the fact that the overall amount of salary paid out by the owners dropped to the 2016 level. Now,
you mean going into this negotiation?
Yeah, going into and one of the reasons is that competitive balance problem that you know, the owners were really raking over the coals. Those last place teams didn't have the initiative to win, to get the draft picks. They didn't, you know, they weren't staying competitive. And now one of the way the owners look at this is that, well, let's expand the playoffs because one, we get more TV money for doing that. So it's greater revenues,
right.
And it keeps everybody in the game trying to be better. And when you take away it, now all of a sudden you have a lottery pick to find out whether you're going to get the number one, or was it just 4 teams or 6 teams?
6 teams. They end up agreeing on 6 teams. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's a difference.
Yeah. And you can't get the number one. And I don't think you can qualify more than 2 years in a row to get in the lottery.
Look at Houston, what they did for a while. They just kept getting number one picks. All of a sudden they got a dynasty. They drafted well and they did well, but they weren't doing anything to win during those years.
No, they were not.
Now you have to.
Yes.
And so in order to win, you got to have those major league players, not you know, guys that are making minimum on your bench and everything. You got to be able to compete.
We're talking to former Baltimore Oriole Doug DeCinces. Doug was an American League representative back in the strike year of 1981. And Doug, let me continue. One of the things that the Players Association had been upset about over the last 10 years or so, or 8 years, was this manipulation of service time early in a player's career. And we know that players like Chris Bryant, you know, he was the key guy. It was pretty miffed, and his agent was miffed that the club kept him down for another 4 weeks or 5 weeks in the minor leagues so they could control him a full another year. Well, now they're giving teams incentives draft pick wise if you got the rookie of the year or the top 3 in the rookie of the year. So they're trying to give incentives to teams now to bring those players up rather than disincentives. You like that aspect of this?
Well, you know, they had to. I mean, what they were trying to do, they were playing games with the negotiated contract. And to go around and hurt a player's career by sending them down what did he have? 9 home runs in spring training?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's wrong. That's wrong. And then they option guys out, for a short period of time and go back and forth. And the other thing is changing the competitive balance a little bit is now that and affecting players is they're only allowed to option them 5 times. So
Right.
yeah.
God, Jim Henneman and I talk about it. In the old days, that's 5 times in one season now. In the old days, players had I think 3 options, period, and one pickup and drop is counted as one, not the whole season, not in
I
the
know.
season. Yeah.
And that got moved out somehow in negotiations, but you can see clearly there are benefits to that because they're moving starting pitchers and things like that back and forth. They're the protection of the player. They put guys more on the 10-day disabled list now than they ever did before, because they don't want to risk that major injury by having a guy rush back.
Right.
So they rather just say, hey, I'm going to put you on the 10-day and I'm going to call somebody up because I don't want you to come back after 5 days of saying you're okay and then miss a month, because that was happening in baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball players are guys that, they want to be on the field. Their job is to play and they want to be there. And sometimes they're not very good trainers. The players are not very good trainers.
Right.
Into the decision whether they're good enough to go play.
Yeah, their decision is based on their want to get out there and play.
That'd be right.
Yeah. Doug, who, in your opinion, out of this deal, is there a winner and a loser? Did the players win back a couple inches of ground that they had lost over the last 10 years?
I think they did. But I think that, look, I'm a firm believer. Unless you're trying to, in which this is, good negotiations is neither side's overly excited.
Yeah.
But they're pleasantly pleased.
Yep.
They're not excited. That's what it comes down to. In the past, such as in 1981, the owners were trying to destroy the Players Association and remove them. And they found out that wasn't going to work. And that was a total loss for the owners at that time. And the players won everything.
Yep.
And 1985, that was the first time we did a little bit of a give back. And that give back was we lowered the pension qualifications to a max 10 years instead of the 17 years that it was.
Right.
And for that, we got upgrades to the pension plan. And everybody who played in the big leagues day one, you didn't have to wait till you're 4 years to get a pension. You were going to be eligible to get something along the way. And that helped more players than not, because as you said, the average major league career is 4 years. Well, the owners before knew that, and some guys they would back then, if that guy was getting close to 4 years and he wasn't an everyday player, they'd cut him and not allow him to get the pension. But now you get that pension. But for that, we gave arbitration from 2 to 3 years.
Right.
I think to me, that was a win for the players. And the guys that were younger players losing arbitration for 1 year back then, wasn't a great deal. And frankly, in 85, we didn't have the strength that we had in 81. 81, every player knew that the goal for the owners was to destroy and eliminate the Players Association.
Right.
You can't back professional athletes into a corner and expect to win. That's never.
the hang up at the very end, Doug, over the international draft of
Yeah.
talent. Uh, First of all, I'm confused as to why why the owners need to negotiate that with players, with a players association where none of them are members of, they're not coming up through the international signing. I guess some players are, the players like Pujols and Soto and those guys. Yeah.
Well, I've always felt this, and correct me, I not meaning disrespect to the owners in any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is, I think that the owners need guidelines from themselves. Okay, when you have a hot young player and you've got 10 teams out there trying to sign him, or another Shohei Otani coming in, and everybody sees the talent that he is, and they're all out there gambling, and he who throws the most money at it wins. All right, now they need something to go, hey, wait a minute, we got to have a draft so we don't have to keep paying all this money to free agents or that don't make it, or all these players that don't make it, where they're spending money away from. Now here's the key: they're taking money that could go to the players here in the United States and in the big leagues, and they're taking that foreign budget and saying, well, we're not going to sign such and such, we're going to go younger player who's making less amount of money, because that way we can possibly go pick up some young future star and pay $5 million or 10 million.
They had already addressed this, and
you understand the whole circle of that.
Yeah.
So the owners needed guidelines,
right, to keep themselves from overspending themselves. They had already addressed this in capping how much teams could spend on international signing. They already limited teams in the amount they could, but just not on one player.
So now they're going to, whoever that player gets drafted by.
Well, now they'll have
one team to deal.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It'll keep his price down. We're talking with Doug DeCinces. Doug, just a few more minutes on this. First of all, do you know Rob Manfred at all?
No.
You've met him? You don't know him. Your impressions of his leadership in this situation, in this negotiation, because look, he negotiated with the players and he had those rights in 2020 to sort of mandate, because of the pandemic, how many games there would be and all that. And he realized there was a great deal of acrimony at that time in 2020. Doesn't a leader of a corporation like MLB that's dealing in billions of dollars, doesn't he need to show some more leadership and sort of have almost dragged Tony Clark out to dinner, gotten to know him a little better, and worked on developing a relationship with him? Rob Manfred knew that he was the beneficiary of the relationship he had with Michael Weiner, who was the head of the Players Association. Yep. He did nothing to kind of further the cause of cutting down the acrimony building up in this. Your impressions of Manfred?
Okay, these are my personal impressions from the out. Okay, first of all, the commissioner's job is to do what is in the best interest of the game.
Yep.
Not the owners.
Right. And we realize that's a tough line to walk, because they're paying you and can fire you. But that's what real leadership is.
Well, okay. Peter Ueberroth only lasted so long because he was.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And some of the owners didn't like that. Okay. Bowie Kuhn stuck around way too long.
Right.
Way too long. And he was the biggest puppet in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't ever use the term what's best for the game of baseball. You can't tell me. I knew that there was situations that I really irked me when baseball moved the All-Star game. Really irked me because since when does baseball enter into the political correctness world?
Mhm.
Why? Why would you do that? Because it's a sport. Baseball does internalize their own things, but you don't move a game because of something that's,
Right, that their state legislature had done.
hey,
Yeah.
you don't do that.
Yeah.
And when he did that, the one thing I wished is that, and I'm an American leaguer, but I wanted the Braves to win at home because then he would have had to give that trophy and sit there and listen to a packed stadium,
Right,
boo living crap out of it.
right,
And as it was, they booed in Houston, but
right.
it was in a packed stadium because what he did was wrong. Now he starts this thing and he wonders why, okay, we're going to have a lockout. Well, when you don't negotiate from July to the lockout day and you
Right.
send over say, well, this is basically what we're going to do. And then you're going to force everything. And now we're, losing time and everything. It's the same thing that happens year in and year out in negotiations. And my thought was, why wait this long? I
Right.
always, when I said, let's settle this thing earlier. Let's get it. If it comes down to one or two items, so be it. But let's not have the entire CBA out there on a limb when you don't need to do that.
Agreed. We're in total agreement on that. Hey,
So
go
out of
ahead.
all those things, to answer your question,
Yeah,
not high.
not a lot. Okay. um, Doug, you were around when, I mean, you hadn't gotten the league yet, but in 1973, the American League introduced the designated hitter. It's only been 44 years, I think, to 48 years, I'm sorry, to get the National League to move that direction and the American League to move that direction. Major League Baseball now has one rule. You like the designated hitter rule?
Yes.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
I think the designated hitter rule gives starting pitchers the opportunity to stay in the game if they're pitching well, not being moved because of a pinch hitter. And I think that's better for the game. And I think having Nelson Cruz walk up to home plate versus a pitcher taking 3 strikes and walking back isn't fun for a fan.
Yeah.
And the game is about the fans and they want the excitement. And having a DH that can change the game, having a player that can change the game versus somebody going up there, taking 1, 2, 3 and walking back, and then gets pulled out and he may be their star pitcher. And now the fans don't get to see their star pitcher continually pitching.
Right.
So
Well,
much better.
The thing that gets me about it too is you get a guy like Max Scherzer, and he's only swinging the bat very infrequently anyway. So he's more susceptible to me to like pulling a muscle or something. I just think the idea of having the pitcher do something that they're not doing that often. How about the sacrifice bunt? I don't want my pitchers making $43 million breaking a finger by the fact he doesn't know how to bunt,
Yes,
Hey,
exactly.
Last question for you. It seemed to be a fait accompli that we were not going to have the ghost runner in extra inning games. I have to be honest with you. When I heard that baseball was thinking of this 4 years ago, I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I got to tell you that this year, I found extra innings to be more interesting.
Well,
And now news came out today that it looks like it is returning, that they're in agreement to have that because the players really don't want to play 16, 18 inning, 20 inning games.
well, you know what? I might be a bit of a purist,
Yep.
but I understand it. I just don't like it. How's that?
I understand. I understand. To me, it opened up a whole new way. It's just like the extra innings got very exciting because there was immediately action going on the field, where something, wait a minute, if they score, and it seemed like an awful lot of times teams that were focused on not giving up the one run or only scoring the one run, the next team scored 2 runs because they got the first one so quick. I found it.
Here's something that didn't come into effect with the decision. If you're a team and you're starting the 9th inning, the 10th inning, man on second base, and you've got the 7th, 8th, and 9th hitter coming to home plate.
Right.
Now, if the other team is starting and he has the third,
4th, and 5th.
who's got a better chance of winning?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So,
we now with betting on sports, we can make a lot of money in the extra innings, Doug. Hey, many thanks. I know it was a big deal for you to do this twice in about a 6-week period, but Ross and I are very appreciative of you doing it and giving us your insights.
Dan, I love talking the game with you guys, and I'm always happy to do it. And it's just my opinion out there, everybody. So what the heck?
All right. I love that smile. Doug DeCinces, many thanks for joining us. We remind you that these Zooms are brought to you by the Costas Inn. Everybody in Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go eat, but it's also now a great place to get your carry out. 4100 North Point Boulevard, 410-477-1975, the Costas Inn. Doug, we'll talk to you down the road. I promise it won't be anytime too soon. Okay, buddy?
All right. Enjoy.
Stay well. All right. Thursday night, our guest is going to be Maddie Brightman. She's an executive producer of the Scott Van Pelt Show, and she happens to be the daughter of our friend TJ Brightman, who's an executive vice president for the Baltimore Orioles. We'll see you then. Thursday night, 7 o'clock. See you, Doug.
Take care.
Bye.